And integrity is a little bit the same thing, not just external, but also internal. The consistency of whenever I'm in a particular situation, I'm always choosing the same thing.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking about certain things, it is consistently the same message I'm giving to others, but also I'm giving to myself. Because that's how I'm programming my own identity. And that's how I'm programming essentially my own behavioral patterns, which then either serve me or not. And oftentimes 10 years later, we learn things, and I learned it. I mean, I'm part of the therapy club. I have in my office here sitting every book from Pia Mellody to Ralph Earl, you name it. And if anybody's been ever through personal therapy and everything else, you all know what these books are about. These are things where 10 years later, then, or 20 years later, we say, oh my God, this is what happened to me. This is how I grew up. This is the person my father was, my mother was. I understand, I have empathy, how they became who they are. I forgive them. And now what do I need to do to get out of that pattern? And there's moments we are doing really well. And then there's moments we fall back in old behaviors. And that's where, to your point, integrity comes in again, and the ability to say, let me reflect on that for a moment. I really don't like what happened there. And oftentimes we can't repair that. Oftentimes we can't make that go away. And sometimes we're being called out on it. Sometimes somebody will say, well, you know what? The people who constantly talk about integrity or authenticity or this or that, those are the worst because they violate things all the time. No, it's because we, as the people who've done a lot of work, we oftentimes understand what it takes. But that does not mean we're perfect. It does not mean that every swing we take with the tennis racket onto this integrity tennis ball, or whatever that tennis ball may be at the moment, is always perfectly placed. But being able to then reflect and say, you know what, it's like, what's that Britney Spears song? I'm not a Britney Spears fan, but I remember my daughter was a big fan about it when we used to drive to school. Oops, I did it again. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes that just happens, right? I won't sing, I promise you. But that's, I think we need to be self-reflective, to your point, and I think that's a big part. So I took a long detour here to get back to
No. It's perfect, man. I mean, these are. I appreciate that about you, and being able to bring that together, because depending on obviously our listeners are broad, both in their experience and roles and life as well, and I think that was a very comprehensive way to answer it.
The translation of action or values translated into action. That's what culture is all about. Doesn't matter, because if I conduct myself a certain way, that is pervasive. And everybody else will, it becomes a movement. It becomes a wave. And if people can feel that wave, they're going to start riding it, and they're going to love it.
Say that one more time, Stephan, because I think 3 times is magical. So say that one more time.
So values put into action. That's what ultimately culture is all about. Right? Because that's authenticity also.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can say, oh, I'm authentic. Well, what does that mean? Authenticity means that whatever I believe as a value, but I put it into action, that becomes the experience for other people in how they feel me, see me, experience me. That's what authenticity is all about.
Yeah, I think the famous poet Drake put it, said something very similar. He said, it's real when you are who you say you are. Yeah. No, correction. It's real when you are who you think you are, I believe is the exact statement.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that's powerful. But also think, there's this other joke on the other side I make a lot. And you and I both live in the Boston area, which is, don't you know who I think I am? So I think we talked earlier about, self-value and the doubts we have and the not enough and not good enough. I think all these things, they're so closely and so correlated to each other that the best gift we can give each other is, asking for help. I mean, this is the beauty of if you're a young entrepreneur, please use this as much as you can. Connect with community, talk to people, young or old. We have 5 generations in the workforce now. We never had that.
Yep.
And my generation, we grew up with Well, if you didn't know anything, go back to the library in the university, go back to school, go study, go read it up in a book. Internet for me when I grew up wasn't a research option. There was a book, there was a teacher, there was somebody who knew it, but asking for help was weakness. Today, not asking for help is stupid. Right? I mean, I can't put it any other way because there's so many things. I mean, what do we learn in school today? We learn a lot in school today, but the biggest thing you can learn in school is to collaborate, co-create, the dynamics of groups, research, where to find the data, where to find the research, because everything I learn in school, I can find somewhere today.
Sure.
Right? But the dynamics of research, kind of applying the various pieces, it's always that triangulation between education, knowledge, and competency. There's a lot of smart people in universities. I mean, we are a university town here, a university city.
Absolutely.
But are they necessarily competent? A lot of them aren't. I don't care which school they come from. And let's line them all up on the other side of the Charles River, each of them. So I think that's the part where we need to be very aware of. And again, I think as aspiring leaders, as influencers, as people with the heart in the right place and wanting to connect with people, transparency, vulnerability, integrity, all these words are so important, but they're so closely related. And the one word which has no place in that, and that's not human, is perfectionism. And I think that's the part. If we can accept that, I think a lot of the story we tell ourselves of not good enough, I'm not perfect enough, I need to be a certain way. I mean, social media is not helping with that on top of that. But I think that's a part which is, I think very, very powerful.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And, even as what you're just expressing right now, right? It's so interesting and part of the not only only dream big, but once again driving change through people, right? You talked about attempting to do things in isolation, right? There's a famous proverb that says, "He who isolates himself seeks his own desires. He rages against all wisdom."
Yeah.
And and to your point, we live in a day and a time where you can DM someone that you admire who's doing some things. You should tweet that person. I mean, I've gone onto LinkedIn and other platforms, like literally everyone that you want to get in touch with is within reach. And one thing that I've been telling people, and I will encourage you all, not only from an entrepreneur perspective, but as you think about your dreams and achieving them, make a list of 10, 15, 20, 25 people that you admire who are doing what you say you want to do, right? And maybe it's just a component of that, right? And reach out to those people. Right now, the world is opening up a little bit, right? So this isn't as perfect of a time, because frankly, the perfect time to reach out to them would have been about 6 months ago, because nobody could tell you that they were doing anything, right? Because they were at home, and frankly, probably tired of being on WebEx and everything else,
right,
and are ready. But reach out to those people with your questions, right? How did they get started? What are some challenges that you're seeing to getting started, right? Because the world has gotten so small as a result of technology and some of the pieces that we have in front of us now, right? Hopefully this platform is going to continue to encourage people to push outside of your comfort zone. And we're winding down to a close today, but this has been so powerful, my friend. I'm really, really grateful for being able to spend this time with you. I had the privilege, and I will shout out, you and my executive acceleration coach, Anthony Flynn, as well. If you don't have a coach, folks, it just really, really consider. We talked about counseling, earlier, and I'm a firm believer in counseling as well. But I really, really believe that there's value in finding a coach, and specifically someone who has done something that you're looking to achieve. There's just such value, and I have invested, myself in coaching, and so I had the opportunity to invest in receiving coaching from, I believe, the #1 motivational speaker in the world, Eric Thomas. And we spent an hour together a few weeks ago. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you all, because you were talking about this as we're talking about forgiveness and, thinking about the past, but more so learning from it and not being afraid of failure. And he said this to me, and I jotted it down, and it's still so relevant to me because it was so powerful when he shared it with me. He said, "You need to discipline yourself into not entertaining the past." Discipline yourself to not entertain the past. And once again, not from a learning perspective, but it was just such a powerful thing for me because that is something that, once again, on those days that you don't necessarily feel like it, right? That is when those thoughts or feelings of inadequacy, or not being enough start to creep in. And so, just encourage you all. I will share that with you because, Eric shared it with me. ET, appreciate that. Discipline yourself into not entertaining the past. I don't know who that's relevant for, but it is something that I look at every single day. And it's been so powerful of a tool for me over the past couple of weeks since I've had that session.
It's such a great point, and I'm going to put a second piece behind that, and not to take away from the focus on Eric here. But one of the things that I had to learn is, and I learned it the tough way, but it's a reality. Closure is never something somebody else gives to you. It's closure is something you give to yourself. Right? Mm-hmm. And that kind of speaks along the same lines where sometimes you need to just, fortunately, unfortunately, for whatever the emotional stage is and status you're in, but closure is not something someone else gives to you. It is something you give to yourself. Because if you're waiting for someone else to give you closure, it probably will not happen. And that is the same thing. It drags on an emotion, a state of mind that is not serving you. And I think that's the way, if there is a way to kind of disconnect from you and kind of look external, how am I, by my thoughts, by my actions, by my choices, how am I serving me? And what is best suited to ultimately get me to that, only dream big vision, and how does that serve me to get there? And I think Eric's words are, wow, very profound, but so powerful. And I think that's a big part of that.
I think that's huge, Stephan, and I think that's actually a perfect place to end our conversation today. Stephan Thieringer, so grateful to have you on today and for our conversation. Hope that you all got a lot out of it. I know that I am so happy to be able to revisit this recording myself because that is extremely powerful. As we sign off today, just thank you all for listening. Appreciate you and looking forward to being able to deliver and curate more of these conversations. And as always, we encourage you all to only dream big. If you like today's podcast, tune in to our social media to get updates on our next episode. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook at Only Dream Big Inc. And hit the subscribe button below.
That's all for today, folks. See you next time.